There's some big topics coming up during the 2021 legislative session here in Utah, and we're excited to share with you some of what those priorities are going to be.
Utah businesses have been hit extremely hard during the pandemic. According to one survey, 60% of all businesses that have closed will never reopen again. Some of them might have been able to survive if they were afforded some flexibility in their operations. And that's why during this upcoming session, we're working to introduce a first-in-the-nation, all-inclusive regulatory sandbox to provide the businesses in Utah the much-needed regulatory relief they need to succeed.
A person's home is their castle. And so when we ask our police officers to burst into their home looking for criminal activities or possessions, what we're doing is we're putting the individual and the officers themselves in a really dangerous position. This is why Libertas Institute is working on a bill to effectively ban no-knock warrants in most cases and add safety requirements to knock and announce warrants whenever they're carried out.
Over the summer, we've been studying two different proposals that would help seniors with rising property taxes. The first is a small tax credit for low-income seniors who are struggling to pay property taxes. The second affects a larger segment of Utah seniors by allowing them to defer their property taxes until their home is sold or ownership changes. Both these property tax solutions would help seniors enjoy their hard-working property in the twilight of their lives, especially in these uncertain times.
Over the years, we've worked on civil asset forfeiture quite a bit. This is the government's ability to legally steal people's property without convicting them with a crime. Well, a couple years ago, there was a Utah Supreme Court case making an important ruling on the topic, and this year we're working on a bill that codifies or puts into law some of what's in that ruling to make sure there aren't any big shenanigans happening and make sure that we better protect people's right to property from the government wrongfully taking it.
Whether you're embarking on a home project or planning an event, chances are you'll have to apply for a permit. The problem is this can be a confusing and a tedious process. This year, we're working to ensure that the process of getting a permit is clear, consistent, and fair. The criteria for granting permits should be straightforward, an explicit deadline should govern the process, and, should you be denied, that decision should be subject to an appeal process.
Over the past year, we've seen countless examples where law enforcement have been leveraging new and novel technologies to help solve crime. But sometimes doing so puts minorities at risk as well as otherwise innocent people. So it's fair to ask, is it too soon for law enforcement to be using these technologies? That's why during the upcoming session, we will be working with the legislature to introduce a first-in-the-nation bill, the Privacy Protection Act, that focuses on putting people's civil liberties at the forefront of discussions before allowing law enforcement to be an early adopter of a new or novel technology.
We requested and evaluated policy manuals from police departments all across the state, and what we found was inconsistencies with how each department handled investigations. Libertas Institute is working on legislation to ensure that an objective standard is created at the state level so investigations are treated the same from department to department and each officer's rights are upheld in these investigations.
During times of emergency, how much power should the executive branch be able to have? And for how long can emergency be declared? As we saw during the COVID-19 pandemic and the government's response, the executive branch assumed quite a bit of authority based on laws written decades ago that did not contemplate this ongoing situation. So there's going to be one or two bills trying to restrict this authority and make sure that there's proper oversight and that our rights can be protected from an overzealous executive branch.
Using what's called eminent domain, the government can take your property from you and use it for their own purposes. In some cases, this makes sense. In other cases, the taking is for the purpose of a park or a recreation center, not a necessary government function. This year, we're working to reform the powers of eminent domain so that property is only taken when it's absolutely necessary. The power of the government to take private property should always be regarded as a last resort.
As you might expect, this session we will continue to address burdensome occupational licensure requirements that prevent people from obtaining good-paying jobs. We've been working to strike the right balance to preserve health and safety in the cosmetology industry, as well as expand the scope of practice for several occupations in the medical field. Looking at licensing for handymen and decreasing onerous continuing education requirements has also been on our radar.
For all of these bills and many, many more, make sure you head to our website, libertasutah.org, and click on the tracker link at the top. You can bookmark that, follow the bills that matter to you, email your legislators, and watch what's happening, learn about these bills. The Libertas Tracker is an excellent way to keep a finger on the pulse of what's happening during the Utah legislative session.